So my name is Melissa Civarella, and I am the Next Gen Director, and I joined the staff in April of 2016. And Next Gen in a lot of churches is called family ministry, but they chose Next Gen when they're putting together the job description because actually in the Bible we talk about raising the next generation in the faith. You may have heard, especially if you've been volunteering for a long time, about a concept called Think Orange. Anybody heard of that? All right, a few. And it talks about the light of Christ represented by the church, the color yellow, and the love of the family represented by the color red combined makes the secondary color of orange. Orange is a philosophy that I believe in with all my heart, and that's why I serve in the church. And it only works because of you. This could not be successful if we all just came and sat and listened to a sermon and sang, although that is critically important, worship is, but it's the discipleship that you all give and our children and students receive that is that partnership with parents in the gospel that makes the difference. The investment you all make in the kids of all ages is what really impacts them, that opportunity to go deep. So even if they're hearing it at home, but we know some of our students especially don't have believing parents. How many of you are serving in student ministries? You all, if you haven't already, you may come across a student who doesn't have believing parents. They were invited here by somebody who already comes here. And so you may be the only person that they hear from. Our children, they're always looking for lots of input, and so they're getting it at home, but then they're also getting it here. And even our littlest ones get the love of Jesus Christ just by being rocked and sung to. And all of that is preaching the gospel. So who knows the definition of the gospel? What does it mean? 2 words.
Good news.
Good news. Thank you very much. And the good news, if it is good news, we can't contain it, and we are excited to proclaim it and explain it to our kids of every age. So again, thank you for your commitment. This ministry is you. It really is you. And to bring that into greater focus, we had, how many did we have at the first training?
About 60.
60. And then tonight we have you all another 3 times 6 is 18, right? About 20. And we have some that we've had to make special accommodation for that couldn't make either. So we probably have about 120 volunteers throughout all of these ages that make the ministry possible. That doesn't even include when we do Vacation Bible School or the SMPs or any of these things. And so again, you are the ministry, and we are deeply, deeply thankful. Because the gospel is central to all we do, without the gospel we have no reason to exist. The church exists because it is Christ's bride. I found this document, and it's called 5 Ways to Teach Kids and Students the Gospel. It's 2-sided, but I'll just give you the highlights, and if you would like this, I'm going to pass it around. You can take one home. If you're here with another member of your family, you can take one and share. But the 5 ways to teach the gospel is for you to know the gospel, for you to love the gospel, for you to share the gospel, for you and I to live out the gospel, and for you and I to be marked by the gospel. So if you would like one of these, please take one and then pass it to the, oops, not very good division of those papers, thank you, Paul, and then pass it on. We're going to move on to another segment, but before we do, I want to ask the staff members that are here to come on up, and we'll do a little intro, quick. Did you turn that off?
No.
Oh, okay. I'll move on this end. All right, so we have, we'll start with childcare since you're on the end. Heather is our new childcare manager, and we are thrilled to have her. She brings with her great administrative and managerial skills, and she's jumped right in. And we are, again, just thrilled to have her. And she is part of the children's ministry team. Pam Sellers is the large group
Large group
coordinator?
coordinator, yes.
I started to say director. I thought, whoo, we'll just elevate her right now. And Pam has been with us for 9
years.
plus years.
Yes.
So we're thrilled.
Yes. I have a great time up here.
She does. And if any of you want to just exercise those dramatic bones and muscles, like come on
I
up.
always need storytellers, so.
Matt Sims, for many of you know, started in student ministries with us a year ago. And in that year, Matt came to us with experience in children's ministries, student ministries, and college. And when he read the job description and came and applied, it was a great fit, and it was a great fit. But we didn't know that God had other plans for him a year later. And so when Kim Snyder, who was our children's ministry senior manager, put her hat in the ring for the engagement director position, we shared it with the team so we could all be praying for her. And Matt told us later that his heart kind of got stirred about children's ministry, but he said, I won't leave unless...
I will not leave unless Courtney leaves.
And 2 weeks later, Courtney called Matt and I into a meeting and said, I'm going off to seminary. And so Matt was like, boom. And then we talked. And then we talked with Glenda, and everybody was like, this is definitely the Lord. So we're thrilled to have Matt now in children's ministry. And he is partnered with these two women in the blue and white stripes who coordinated.
There we go.
You need to show the picture from Sunday now.
Karen Coble, who has been with us 8 years?
Yep.
Getting this right. And so they bring all this experience, and the three of them are already well on their way to launching this year. And then in student ministries, because Courtney and Matt left, we're incredibly blessed that Michelle agreed to come back in the interim along with Fia Jeske. And so we have a team who had experience here and who love and are passionate about student ministries and came back for the interim.
Yay.
So, thank you very much for this team. All right, we're going to step next into Realm.
No,
Realm.
I'm next.
Oh, you're next.
I'm
You
next.
guys switched. Okay.
So, this is the part of the night I'm sure is your favorite part because we're taking a test.
Woo!
I got the lucky job of talking about the child protection policy, which I'm sure is your favorite part of every training. But as heavy as it can feel, it's a really important part of the training just because we do take safety very seriously with our kids. So, and we're the ones that are with the kids. We're all, each one of you are here because you're volunteering with youth and students and children. So it's up to us to be the eyes and ears that are keeping the kids safe in the church. So we're gonna have a little test. The reason I do it in a test form is because it's helpful to know, like when you're asked, if you can't answer the question, then you realize what you don't know, right? So, anyways, I'm gonna try to do it from up here where I can kind of read it a little easier. All right, so I'm gonna read it. You've got bells on your thing. I'm gonna read it out loud. Wait till our buzzers. Wait till I finish reading it, and then you can buzz if you think you know the answer. So, 2 adult policy. Which situation below adheres to the 2 adult policy rule? 2 vetted adults are with 1 student. A vetted adult and a 16-year-old vetted youth are supervising club for 4th through 6th graders. A vetted adult and a 16-year-old vetted youth are teaching one of several classes running on Sunday morning. A married couple is teaching a class on Sunday morning with approval of the Next Gen director, and 2 vetted youth are running childcare for elementary kids. So, anybody want to try? All right, Steve.
A and D.
All right, A, 2 vetted adults are with 1 student. That is correct. And what else did you say?
D.
D, a married couple, yes, is teaching a class on Sunday morning with the approval of Next Gen director because there's other classes running. Any other answers? Paul? B and C as well? So B, a vetted adult and a 16-year-old vetted youth are supervising club. Actually, that is not correct. So the reason that is not correct is because if there was another adult here, that would be fine. But an adult and a youth cannot be supervising a standalone event. So if there's a number of classes going, they can be in the class together running that class. But if it's a standalone event and there's kids here, we need to have 2 vetted adults and a youth can be there, but they can't be the second adult. But they can be the second adult in a classroom with other things happening. And so obviously E is also not correct. 2 youth cannot be running childcare for elementary kids by themselves. We have to have a vetted adult. All right, next. Which of the following actions would you take if you found yourself alone with a child in a classroom or a non-public event space? A, you must remain visible to the passerbys and you are to leave the door open. B, you must leave the door open, but you do not need to be visible from the doorway. And C, ask a parent to stay and alert a VPC staff member. Rachel. C and A, yes. So essentially it's transparency. You stay by the door. If you don't close the door, you just don't, if the door's here, don't hang out over here, hang out where people could be walking by and see you. Generally on a Sunday morning, I would just stand by the door and chat with the child until somebody comes. Sometimes, especially up here, we now gather the kids downstairs at 9:30. At 11, there's multiple people here, so it's hard to be alone with a kid anymore, but there are times when it happens, and so those are the things you do. All right, 2 adult policy. Which actions would you take if your co-leader unexpectedly couldn't make it to PM? So we're talking to the PM group, small group. Meet in your normal space, even if it's very private. Meet in a visible space with unobstructed window or door and sit so you're visible from outside the room. And C, inform the ministry director about the situation and where you are meeting.
What's PM?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's for the student ministries. So a small group. You can think of it even as just a small group. You're meeting with a small group of students or kids. C and?
B.
C and B, yes. Don't go into a private place. Essentially, don't go into a private room. You want to be, again, transparent and visible. All right. Potty policy. This one's a little longer. Which of the following situations adhere to the restroom policy? Now, for student ministries people, you might be going, I don't need to worry about this, I'm tuning out. But I need you not to tune out because, again, you're the eyes and ears. So you are responsible to be noting if somebody's doing this wrong. So we want all of you to know the rules. So for children under the age of 5, the volunteer waits outside of a single stall restroom. That would be a bathroom like back over there. At the child's request, the bathroom door may be closed, but at all times the volunteer must stand outside the bathroom door. A volunteer takes a child in 3rd grade or under to the bathroom, instructs the child to return when he or she is finished, and goes back to the classroom while the child uses the bathroom. And C, a volunteer takes 2 children, 3rd grade and under, to the bathroom, inspects the bathroom before the children enter, stands outside the restroom and escorts the children back to the classroom when they finish.
What does the bathroom look like? I mean, is it just like a single door? With
It could be, it's like the public bathrooms over here. We're talking about the public bathroom. Okay, over here, Sharon.
I'm gonna go with A and C.
A and C, yes. So you wouldn't take the kids to the bathroom and say, good luck, I'll meet you back in the classroom. You'd wait outside. The key is that you check the bathroom before. If there's somebody using the bathroom, you'd wait to send them in. So we have had experiences where the kids run ahead and run in, and you go to check and there's somebody actually in the bathroom, especially if it's a men's bathroom, and that's quite embarrassing. But you don't want to be sending kids in, and you're not supposed to go into the bathroom. If there's an accident or something happens where a child needs you to come in, either on a Sunday morning, ask Pam to just be there with you, or or prop the door open with the garbage. There is a garbage in there, and prop the door open, and so that you're visible. And the whole key is being visible. Okay, and you always want to take kids in pairs when they're younger. Okay. Acceptable forms of discipline. Which of the following situations call for physical restraint of a child? A, the child runs ahead of the group inside the church. B, the child is at risk of hurting another child or herself. C, the child is being disruptive in class. Or D, the child leaves the classroom. All right, Steve. B, and that is really the only time that we use physical restraint. Now, there may be a time when a kid, you might need to stop a child with their shoulders, but you're not going to grab them. So it's when they're hurting somebody or hurting themselves, at risk of hurting themselves. Running towards the door to leave, yes, you're gonna grab them, you're gonna try to, but often if you can, put your body in front of them. We're trying, the physical restraint is really not the first mode we go to. We use, you can use the body block if they're trying to walk away from you. You talk to them, you guide them with your hand, but we're not talking grabbing. All right, any questions on that? Okay. Acceptable forms of discipline. Which of the following are acceptable forms of discipline? A, timeout alone in an empty room. B, having a child sit out of the next activity. C, redirecting by asking the child to help with a task. D, physical punishment. Or E, pointing out the problem in a ridiculing way in front of his peers.
C.
C is certainly one of them.
I think B could be as well.
Yes, B and C. So there are times when kids just really need a little bit of a space alone. You're not going to take them alone out into another room and leave them there. But to sit out and next to you for a few minutes is an absolutely acceptable method. Sometimes with the bridges, we have some special needs kids that they actually leave the classroom and walk in this hallway, but we have other classes happening. And that's okay as well. They're visible to everybody in that. They're visible to the other kids, but they're just not alone in a room by themselves. All right. And certainly redirecting is our first mode of, that's where you go. You ask them to help, try to get them to refocus, ask questions, see what they're thinking. All right. Photos and electronic communications. This tends to be a little bit more at the youth. Which of these actions adhere to our communication policy with youth? A, you ask the student to give you her telephone number. B, you text only one student at a time. C, you email a student and include his parent or a second vetted adult on the communication. And D, you send a personal message using Snapchat.
She wasn't finished.
Snapchat, but Snapchat, I don't even know what the thing is. Okay,
I'm so keen
Daniel.
on that. I think it's C.
So C is absolutely one of the things that's right. And is that the only
That's
one?
the only one.
Okay, looking at them all. I don't have the answers here. So yes, you're right. So you do not text a student at one at a time. You'd always have somebody else on there. Why is D? Does anybody know why D is not a correct answer?
You can delete Snapchat.
Yeah, it actually is self-deleting, so there's no history of it, so it's not allowed. So today it's Snapchat, another day it'll be some other name, but that's any kind of program like that we don't use with the kids. All right. True or false? You can send an email through the group function in Realm to students in your group or class, and parents will receive the communication.
True.
Very true, that's right. So when you, as group leaders, you'll learn about this in Realm, but as group leaders, you can send an email. You don't have to, the great function of that is you don't have to go look up every parent as well as the kids. It's very easy, so Realm's a great way to communicate. All right, true or false? We encourage you to post pictures of your group on Realm, but you should not use a student's or child's first and last name in the post.
True.
True. Good job, Alex. All right. So we, you can use, like if the child's first name is on a name tag, you can post something, but we do prefer to just, if you can, blur out the name tags if it's just not, so we don't have the names. But first and last name, our child protection policy says we cannot post. And Realm is a safe place. Like Realm is it's our church's Facebook kind of thing. Except people can download the pictures, and then we have seen like VBS pictures then taken and posted on their personal Facebook, and that's fine if it's their child and they're putting their but just know that it's open to other people. So if we can blur out their names, that's the best way to do it. And we do encourage you to post pictures. If something happens fun in your group, post it to your realm group. It can be to your girls, and if you're in a small group, girls group, or your 4th grade Sunday school class, and the parents will get it. All right. Your parents will get it. The girls will get it in the student ministries. All right. Reporting and responding. So this is a little bit more serious part. You suspect a child is being abused or neglected. Prioritize the steps you need to take. Notify the appropriate ministry director, a pastor, or the director of operations, which is Doug Lemasters. Call Child Protective Services. Turn in your incident report to the appropriate ministry director, a pastor, or Doug Lemasters within a certain amount of hours. So what steps do you need to take? Go ahead. Steve.
Second one first, first one second.
Yep.
Last one last.
Yes. So we, all the adults in the room, we are mandatory reporters. So if you suspect or have been told about an abusive situation, you must call Child Protective Services. This does not mean that they are going to come the next day and grab that child out of the room, out of the house. It just means they're going to investigate. It is not up to us to investigate. It is for us to call Child Protective Services. And then you would notify one of us, the ministry director, or you can do Doug or a pastor to talk to them about it. And then you would turn in an incident report. All the classrooms upstairs on the 3rd floor have a folder with incident reports in them. And how many hours do you have to report, to turn in the incident report? Within 24 hours, yep. So is there any questions on this? Because this is a heavier part. If a child comes to you and tells you that they've been being beaten or hit at home, I've never reported to Child Protective Services, but I do know they need a little bit of detail, but you're not going to interrogate a child. You're going to just assume, just ask for more clarity. Tell me more about that. That sounds hard. And what did you do? You can just ask gentle questions to find out more information. They will need a little bit of information to go on. So we just need you to remember that, and that we are to report it. Anybody, any questions?
I just have a question about an incident report that's not related to abuse or neglect. Are you going to get to like?
Speaking of, did I do the next one? Okay, let's go. I do have
I was thinking about just like minor injuries and stuff, just to make sure.
And I do have we'll do a couple more questions. An adult so true or false, an adult in a trusted relationship with a child, I already gave the answer to this one, is a mandated reporter and must follow the procedures above if abuse is reported to them or they suspect abuse or neglect. True. Yes, I gave you the answer, but I think y'all knew that. Okay, so here's Rachel's question. Which of the following requires an incident report? An injury on church property, any safety issue, any concern regarding inappropriate behaviors or boundary crossings or suspicions or allegations of abuse or neglect, an unvetted parent is asked to stay and assist in the classroom. All of the above, yes, all of the above. So if a kid gets a little like, some kids come over and go boo boo, and you need a Band-Aid, that's not worthy of an incident report. However, if a bonked head, you need ice. If they really hurt, it seems like they've really hurt their arm. Something happens, that would be incident report. If somebody's just boundary crossing, if you just feel like they're in the child's space and they're not giving them enough, it just feels really awkward, come talk to us and we'll determine if it's a incident to report. But we want you, if you have odd feelings about somebody, please come forward and talk to us about that. It may just be that particular day the person was off, but it may be that if each of us are aware of this and going, wow, I have creepy feelings about this one person. And in fact, this did happen once to me a long time ago. I reported that this person I couldn't even tell you what it was, but I just wasn't super comfortable with that person and the director at that time had that same feeling and had somebody else say it, and just by that was like, okay, there's just something going on here. So please just let us know of those if you see something. And then the unvetted parent staying in the classroom, this is really for patterns. So it's not like a bad mark. It's just simply if we are constantly having unvetted, having to ask somebody to stay in the classroom, then it's showing a pattern and something needs to change. So that's why that would be there. And that's all my questions. Does anybody have any other questions or concerns or thoughts about the child protection policy? Is there anything? Yeah.
There's some children that have special needs and need reassurance, like you feel like they need to be held a little bit if they're, you know,
Yes.
upset or something. What's the boundary with appropriate sort of touching of a child?
Well, so a side hug, holding a shoulder. So the kids that we have spoken to the parents about special needs, they have talked to the buddies. We have buddies here that the parents have said they like to be in the lap, they like to have their shoulders touched, and so we've already been given permission. For really first grade and up, we don't encourage the kid. We do not encourage you to have the kids sitting in your lap. One, because, I mean, they're older, and then you've got a whole gaggle of them going, oh, I want to sit in the lap. So even if a child comes and wants to sit on your lap, you might just like scoot them next to, oh, sit next to me, that way everybody can share. But special needs is a different thing. And then there's some kids that might not be under the special needs, but you know that they just have a little bit more need for redirection or affection. But again, just the safe places, you know, like a place that whatever a swimming suit covers, you would not consider to be the safe places. And if you're finding that maybe more physical touch and is needed for the child just to sit next to you and kind of have your shoulder around them, I would talk to the parent about that and ask if you're just feeling this child is different than others. But generally just the rubbing of a shoulder, that kind of thing. Anybody want to add to that? Anybody else? Great question. All right, I know that was the fun part of this training, but thank you for participating. Your IQ is very strong.
Very strong. Yay.
Those of you who don't know me, my name is Melissa Jensen. I am our realm administrator, as well as our facility scheduler. So the reason you all have space to meet is because I manage that part of the calendar, but the biggest part of my job is I'm our realm administrator. Many of you I know a lot about Realm. Some of you are volunteers who help us input information. A lot of you use Realm. We use Realm to communicate with all of our volunteers. But we want to do a piece in all of our trainings a little bit to encourage you all to use Realm and where those pieces come into play. One thing I do want to share with you is Karen is anticipating a major change that's coming in Realm, and that is the ability for volunteer group leaders to send that email where it would go to the parents and the students. Right now, that functionality, they've promised that we'll have it within the next 3 to 4 weeks, but right now that functionality to send an email that goes to the student and the parents is a function of staff only. But group leaders, they promise me it's coming, and I think it's going to make a really big bang up job for you guys, especially in student ministries. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight, just from a Realm perspective, is Realm is a lot of different things. For those of you in children's ministries and as well as students ministries, you know it's our check-in. It's one of our check-in processes. You guys all used it this evening when you came to check in. That gives us attendance records. The reason attendance records are so important is then you don't have to remember who was in your Sunday school class or your small group. If you're like, gosh, I haven't seen Rachel, you're in front of me, so I'm gonna pick on you, sorry. I haven't seen Rachel in 3 weeks. She hasn't been in Sunday school. She hasn't been in small group. You have the ability to go back and look at your attendance as a group leader and follow up with them versus having to remember, you know, week to week whether you saw somebody regularly. I know most of you were super on top of that, and you know what your kids are missing, and you check up on them, which is great. But sometimes life gets in the way, and it's good to go back and see if maybe there's a pattern. For us on staff, the reason it's important is we might see a pattern. We might see we have 1/3 of the kids we normally do on a 4-day FCPS weekend. Then our staff can determine, are we going to do something different on that Sunday because, you know, 2/3 of our kids aren't coming. So that would be part of that conversation, why it's important for us to have attendance records. Again, the check-in piece, and for children's ministries, you'll talk about that. You all get tablets for all of your classes. You'll be able to look at your children that are in your class. It will have their emergency contacts on those tablets. It also has any allergies that a child might have, things that you as a teacher need to know about the students in your class. We use it as a registration function. So anytime there's an event at VPC, you're registering. If you're registering for fall retreat, woo, woo, woo. I did my time in student ministries at one point. Fall retreat, that's something that you would use Realm for, our registration process. For you as a user, you've got a news feed when you log in to Realm. That will give you the information that's happening in the groups that you are part of. So you're all part of the Vienna Presbyterian Church group. That's where you see the information about a lot of our missions, things that are going on. If you're in a small group and your small group has a prayer request, my dad's sick, I would like my small group to pray for them, rather than having to fire up an email, try and figure out if I have everybody's email, and send an email, I can post in my Realm group, please pray for my family, my father is ill. And the only people who will see that information is the members of that small group. From a student perspective, that means it's the students and their vetted leaders. That is not something that would go out to parents. So it's okay if you don't have to worry about your best friend's parents seeing something that maybe you're not ready for them to see. So from that perspective. So that's why the posting function is so amazing in Realm. It allows you to build that offline community that I know so many of you have. There's calendar function in there, so you can look at all the events happening for everything at VPC, as well as what's happening for your small group. If you needed to have if you're having a bonfire night for your small group at somebody's house, you could do an RSVP and you could say, I need you to bring drinks, or I could need you to bring those kinds of things. You can do that in your Realm small group. That can be done through those groups, and it would only go again to just those group members. It wouldn't show up for everyone. Those are some of the things that you've got. You've got a profile, which has your information and contact information. One of the things that Lisa put up in the Next Gen Volunteer group that you all should have is there were a couple of homework sheets that you guys can download. You have one, it's called your privacy settings and your notifications. Your privacy settings, if you are an adult in your family, you can set the privacy settings for all members of your family, your spouse, your children, and you can choose who sees that information, whether you want it to be all 3,000 members of VPC, whether you want it to be just staff, whether you want it to just be group leaders, whether you want it to be all members of your group. You control that. Staff will always be able to see your information, and you can't hide it from but you can pick and choose, and you can pick and choose what items. I want them to have my email, but I don't want them to have my cell phone. So you have a lot of flexibility on that. The other thing that a lot of people talk about, the other page, is notifications. I need another email personally, like I need a hole in the head. So I choose not to get email notifications for all of my Realm groups. But I have the app on my phone, which is called Realm Connect. It's found in the App Store and the Google Play Store. It's free. Download it. You'll love it. I get a notification on my phone. So if I pull my phone up right now, over here. And I have if we look at, so this is my Realm app right here. I don't have it, I can't connect it to the TV. I don't have that piece with me. Here's my Realm app, but this tells me everything I need to know. But additionally, if I had a little red dot like I have on my Facebook, it's the same thing. It's just, you have a dot, it'll tell you, oh, I have notifications. Somebody needs to give me a message. Somebody needs to, somebody is posted in a group that I'm in. There is also a messaging function through Realm where you can message your group. It's effectively Realm's answer to WhatsApp, because I know that that's one of the many messaging functions that applications out there. So you can communicate through quick, easy text message type information through your small groups. So what I'm here to say is, obviously, is that we really would like you guys to seriously help us as we do ministry with the church, help us connect with one another and our fellow church members outside of Sundays when we're all here. And I would say, continue to check your privacy notice, your Realm privacy preferences, and it's a real good way for us to have engagement. So it's a communication tool, it is a check-in tool, and it's an engagement tool. And we just are really excited about it. We've been using it as a church for about 15 months now. All the check-ins been doing it for about a year. And we think that the more you use it, the more you will see the functionality and what it does to enhance your personal small group experience. And that's it, unless anybody has any questions.
All right, thank you, Melissa.